So nobody was going to have their first date or their second date at our wedding, or was going to have a blind date at our wedding at our expense on that cost per head. It was not going to happen. Hi guys, my name is andiswa.mojapelo and welcome to my channel. If it is your first time here, thank you so much for joining us. I really do hope that you like it here and that you decide to stay. We chat about all things related to money and adulting in general on this channel. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your continuous support, especially during the Becoming Mrs. M series, which is really doing great on the channel. I really appreciate you sharing the video, sharing the knowledge and sharing any insights that you do pick up from this channel. So guys, today we are still on the Becoming Mrs. M series, and we are speaking about how I managed to cut my costs, my wedding cost, that is, by more than 50%. Yes, it is definitely possible and you can do it. But I must admit that when I was jotting down all of the things that I had to do in order to make this possible, I did cringe a bit because I couldn't believe that I actually did some of this stuff. Now, you think of something and you think it's a really great idea, but when it comes to the implementation and actually going ahead with it, it's a whole different story. But I'm so happy that I did because, yes, I had to make difficult decisions. I had to have crucial conversations, but here I am happily married and debt free. So it was definitely worth it. And I want to share these tips with you guys so that you can do the same. So I've got 10 tips, right? And the reason why I did 10 is because I wanted to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to save where they can. It's not everyone who will be able to apply everything that I did, but if you at least are able to apply 5 or 6 of them, then you know that you have saved some costs. Maybe you haven't cut your wedding costs in half, but you were able to achieve something. Before we begin, it's not going to be easy, right? If it was, everybody would be doing it and everybody would be saving costs. So it is going to be difficult and it is going to require some sacrifices, but I can guarantee that it is definitely worth it. So let's get straight into it. First tip is managing the number of guests. Guys, this was highlighted to me quite earlier on in my wedding planning process. So when I was doing quotes for venues, food, catering, flowers, chairs, and all of those things and the options that were available, I quickly realized that most of the wedding costs are very variable, right? And that basically means that the more people you have, which is the quantity, the higher the cost. So essentially, each guest has a cost per head. So you're looking at, let's say, for example, paying 300 Rand to 400 Rand per person. And this is why it's very important to make sure that you manage who you invite to your wedding, because with each extra person, the cost increases, right? And if you can manage to actually have a smaller wedding, or rather, invite the people that are really important to you and not make your wedding open ended, where everybody can come and, people you haven't seen in 20 years are also pitching up and all of those things. It can really help you with managing costs. Now, this is not easy, right? So I'll tell you a tip on how we managed to do this. So when it came to the friends and the colleagues, I think it was a bit easier and we could manage it better. But when it came to family, you guys will obviously know it was a bit more challenging. So what we did is that we allocated, first of all, we split the number of guests in half. So my husband had 50, I had 50, and then within that 50, we split it into family and friends and colleagues as well, right? So basically, to manage the family part quite well, what we did is we said that, okay, you have the family that has 30 seats that they can allocate to the people that they would like to be seated. That means that you excuse yourself from that conversation of figuring out who's going to get those seats, who's going to sit down, why so and so is not sitting down. So what we did is we gave those seats to our parents and we said, this space or these tables are for family, and then you guys are more than welcome to decide who is going to be seated. It still becomes challenging, but at least you know that you've made them happy and that you've given them discretion over who the seats can go to. And then when it came to the friends and colleagues, that was a bit better. But something else that we did in that space is that we didn't necessarily give everybody a +1 invite, right? So in order to get a +1 invite, wait for it, you either had to be one, married, or you needed to be in a serious relationship for more than 5 years, okay? And in that case, it meant that we would know your partner or at least know of them. So nobody was going to have their first date or their second date at our wedding, or was going to have a blind date at our wedding at our expense on that cost per head. It was not going to happen. And we can debate whether like that's fair or not fair. But honestly, I feel like if it's on your budget, then you should at least determine what is fair and what is not fair and then plan accordingly. Now, lastly, on this point, right, guys, if there's anything that our wedding taught me, is the fact that the people who matter will always understand. So don't worry about feelings in to that extent, right? Because the people who really matter and who love you and who are there purely to support you and to be there for you will understand. Now, there is some special exclusions that we had. For instance, if someone was traveling long distance and needed a driving partner, or they were going to be visiting a family friend or whatever, we did say, okay, cool, you can bring a plus one. But it wasn't just an open-ended decision. And the reason for that is, just remember, if your budget is 100,000 Rand and you give everybody a plus one invite, that is 200,000 Rand. You're literally doubling your budget, and adding on people that you probably have never met, that maybe those people bringing them have only met a few times and you probably won't see them again. So we were going for intimate, we were going for cost efficient, and in that we needed to be very mindful of the numbers. The second tip on how you can save, which I think is quite a common one, and a lot of people are doing this now, is combining the traditional ceremony with the actual matrimonial, or commonly known as white wedding. So we did something very similar to this in order to cut the costs, which meant that we only had to cater and do all of that on one specific day. Guys, that slashes your budget in half already, right? So what we did is that we had our matrimonial on the Friday, which is the vows and all of that at the church, a very, very close family, intimate ceremony in the afternoon on the Friday. So by the time we got to the Saturday, we had already been legally married. All the procedures were done. We had the pastor's words, we had our family's blessings, the giveaway was already done. And Saturday morning, we could go straight into the reception, which meant that we had time to do our traditional ceremony, the gift exchange, and all of that on the same day. So on the Friday, we didn't really have catering. The ceremony was only 30 minutes to an hour. And then after that, we just had a few drinks and cake. And then on the Saturday, we had the actual catering with the tent and all of those things. And that really, really cut costs. So another thing you can do is you can combine all of this into one day. The reason we didn't is because we found that you run out of time very quickly when you do that. So that's why we decided to remove the matrimonial and rather have the reception and the gift handover, which really helped us because we were able to wrap everything up, in the afternoon still and before it was dark, which really helps for pictures and stuff like that. So combining the traditional ceremony and the matrimonial, a big, big, big cost saver, something to definitely consider. Tip number 3. So we did not have any groomsmen or bridesmaids at our wedding. I know, it sounds a bit crazy, but I know we're definitely not the first people to do it. It is being done more and more. Now, guys, the reason for doing this was initially not because of the cost, right? It was just an efficiency thing for me. I've got a few ladies that are very close to me that would have been my bridesmaids, and those are the very same people that I needed in terms of support and some things that they had to do at the wedding, with me and for me, that were sort of task items, and I could only trust them to do it. So to take those people and then put them up there and make them bridesmaids, for me, I just felt a bit uncomfortable because I'm essentially taking all the people I trust and I'm putting them up there with me. And then who is going to help me with execution and running around and all of those things? So, yes, it was for my own selfish reasons. But honestly, it was number one, that. And number two, we saved a lot of money by not having, bridesmaids and groomsmen as well. Now, if you caught the wedding video where I shared the wedding budget and the associated costs, you'll know exactly how much can go into that item and how you immediately save when you don't have that. So my sister-in-law was my maid of honor, and my husband's brother, which is my brother-in-law, was his best man. And it was the best thing ever. They were the best people to work with. They sorted themselves out in terms of outfits. They were actually there for us, helping make our lives easier than worrying about, please get me this or please get me that, or my hair or my dress or anything like that. So they took off that pressure for us. They sorted themselves out. And over and above that, they actually made our life easier. So that worked from a cost perspective and also even from a stress and pressure perspective as well. Tip number 4 is a very nice to have and might not necessarily apply, but we had a lot of friends and close friends and family who are like, what do you guys need? How can we help you for the wedding? What can we get for you in terms of gifts and stuff like that? And both my husband and I decided that when we do have that offer or that option, we're going strictly monetary, or we're asking someone to take care of something that would be part of the wedding. The reason for that is because we didn't really need stuff, right? We didn't need furniture and bowls and dishes and microwaves and all of that stuff. We were fine in terms of the furniture and the things that we needed for a household straight after getting married. So it didn't make sense to pile up gifts that we wouldn't end up using. So we decided that if somebody did want to help us or offer their assistance, it was definitely going to be monetary. So we got things like, someone covering entertainment, or someone covering the drinks, or someone covering, my dress or a wedding cake. Those are the type of gifts that we actually got. So obviously, someone's not going to do the entire cake, but they might contribute towards the cake, or might contribute, towards the decor of however they feel. So this is a nice to have, like I said, and it won't necessarily apply to everyone. But if the offer does come to you, don't feel shy. People do understand, especially people who've walked this road before. And that really helps with cost management as well, because there's certain things that we were already taking out of our budget prior to the wedding. And then on the day of the wedding, we just asked for gift vouchers. If you did want to get us something, you had to get us a gift voucher. Nobody had to buy us a gift or had to support us. But if you did ask, it was close family and friends, it was monetary. And then on the actual wedding day, from the rest of the guests, it was gift vouchers. Number 5 is outsourcing to those close to you. So we were blessed enough to have people, and everybody knows someone, right? So what we did is that we decided to outsource to some of the people that are close to us for certain things that they could get done for us. For instance, we have a very close friend who does decor and stuff like that. So she did our flowers. We've got a friend who did our invitations. We've got other people who helped in other ways as well, even if it wasn't necessarily, like a supplier element. My cousin did my hair, all of those things, right? So those things actually help with the budget. So if you do have people around you who are able and capable, so don't just give the tender to a family member or a friend you don't trust or who can't deliver. Make sure that it's someone who can deliver. But if you can go that route, number one, that person will make sure that they don't disappoint you. They'll put in everything that they have, and it's going to be very cost effective, and maybe even zero cost, depending on how close you are in the relationship. So doing that for us, outsourcing to people around us, definitely did help with cutting the costs as well. Number 6 is negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. Okay. Now, I mentioned in one of my videos previously that I'm not very good at negotiating prices. I'm the type of person who will just pay what is asked. But this period really taught me how to negotiate, especially if you're adding up a lot of costs. So if you are using specific suppliers, just know that in some cases, they also add a bit of a buffer on their cost to make sure that if you do ask for a discount, they fall onto their original price. So everybody's looking out for their best interest, whether it's business or personal. So make sure that you are looking after your budget as well. And wherever there's an opportunity to do so, negotiate the prices. Can you add this for a bit extra? If I get this from you as well, will I get a kickback for it? And would I get a discount? Be open to having those type of conversations. It is not only you, everybody who is essentially going to that supplier is probably asking for the same. So don't be shy, guys, especially when it comes to your budget. Make sure that you are negotiating. Number 7 is wedding season. Okay. So if you want to have a cost effective season, try not to get married during the wedding season. So when it's summer and it's warm and everybody's out, and it's like November, December, October, most people are getting married during those months, which means that the demand for the suppliers is quite high, right? And how demand works is the more people that want specific suppliers at a specific time, it means that the suppliers have an advantage and they can start increasing prices. And guys, wedding venues and wedding suppliers work exactly the same way. If there is a lot of demand, the price is likely to be higher. So make sure if you can, you do get married off season. I know some people don't like getting married in winter when it's cold and all of those things. Honestly, for me, if it meant 40% off the prices, I really didn't mind. And also what I noticed is that even if you are not getting married at a venue, the fact that it's off season means that the suppliers are also more willing to negotiate your wedding costs because there isn't that much demand. Number 8 is the venue, right? So, guys, initially, what I wanted from a preference perspective is just green, lawn, trees, that type of thing. And I didn't want waterfalls, dams, and all of those things from a views perspective. So I quoted, from a couple of places that I thought were very simple, but it was very expensive. And it was expensive, not including the deco items and all of the extras like flowers, etc., etc. Um, and I thought, okay, one is going to pay for the venue and then they're going to pay for all these extras as well. And another reason this was an expensive option going to a venue that is because sometimes they limit you in terms of what you can bring. So they'll tell you that, you have to get the flowers from us, you have to get specific things from us, you have to get the food from us, which sometimes isn't the best anyway. And we wanted a very traditional African meal from a food perspective. So it became expensive and not necessarily what we want. So what we decided to do was actually have the wedding at my husband's side of the family. And we got our green lawn, we got our trees, it's a beautiful yard, there was ample parking space and all of those things. And that meant that we could have the traditional ceremony straight after, with people not having to travel, etc. So that really, really worked from a cost perspective, but even from an efficiency perspective, it was also a bonus. Number 9 is where it was possible to do so and where it made sense. We went, directly to the supplier and we bought our own stuff. For example, we got our own flowers, at a pretty reasonable price, fresh flowers that is. And we also bought our own groceries for catering purposes. Now, why this is very important and where it can save cost is because you get to see what you are paying for directly and provide alternatives. So versus you giving a person a tender and then they obviously will buy where they would like to buy and then add a cost and you pay for that, you could say, oh, I didn't realize that roses were so expensive. Maybe let's swap it with this. Oh, these are in season. Okay, let's do that, as far as flowers are concerned. And even for the catering. And interestingly enough, for the last round of buying groceries, I went with a cousin of mine. And because she's done this before, she was able to say, don't buy that, buy this, this is a better alternative. This is too much, maybe buy less of that. And it all worked out in the end. So I think that having that sight over what you are actually involving in the wedding really helps with costs because you will obviously be more careful than a supplier would be who's just trying to get a job done because you know that it's coming out of your pocket. And you are also able to buy in advance, right? And when there's a sale or something like that, you can quickly collect these items as long as they don't expire, of course. Tip number 10, guys, which is very important and also essential in you having a cost effective wedding, is be open to letting things go. So, in a previous video, we spoke about non negotiables, things that you will not compromise on, which is 3 things. Everything else, be open to letting go because sometimes you have this dream idea of a wedding in your head, how the dress will look, the venue, the views, and all of those things. And when you sit down and you actually start getting quotes in, reality hits and you're like, okay, I didn't realize that this would cost this much. And that's okay. It's okay for you to be like, you know what, change of plan. We're going to rather do something else or we're going to get another alternative. Don't allow yourself to be forced into a situation or pressured into a situation where you are now forcing yourself, to get that dream at all costs, to get it at the cost of debt, to get it at the cost of your, your hard-earned savings and all of those things. So be open to let certain things go and make sure that you are holding very tightly on to the non-negotiables. So, guys, in a mouthful, those are the 10 tips that I have on how you can slash that wedding cost into half and make sure that you save. Like I mentioned in the beginning, it's not going to be easy, okay? Everybody wants that dream wedding with all the frills and everything else. But I think what I wanted more was a debt-free wedding. And what I wanted more was a comfortable foundation for our marriage and moving over. And I'm sure a lot of you guys would want to do the same. Let me know in the comment section which of these tips you would apply and which ones are a no, because you will not go down like that. And also make sure that you give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it and do consider subscribing if you haven't so I can see you in the next one. Bye.